On August the 1st, 2017, Kenichiro Takaki went up on stage to announce a bunch of brand new games for the Senran Kagura series. This included a remake of the original game Senran Kagura Burst, known as Burst Renewal. We also have a pinball game, a phone game, and of course, the very long-awaited Senran Kagura 7. But when the teaser for that game came out, there was a little bit extra that they added in there at the end. And that was another teaser for something else that they have brewing, which is a second season of the Senran Kagura anime. Now granted, I was not the biggest fan of the Senran Kagura anime. I thought it was kind of so-so, gearing more towards the bad. I thought it was kind of boring and bland and didn't really focus on all the things that made me interested in Senran Kagura to begin with. But nevertheless, I was still excited and interested to see what they had in store, considering how the level of popularity between then and now is very much different. Who knows, maybe they're gonna have a bigger budget this time. Or maybe they're gonna do a direct continuation of what they had before, which might lead to some signs of it maybe not being the best second season. But either way, all we can do is wait, and the only thing that we know about the second season of the anime is that it's happening. Pretty much after that teaser, after that little line of text that says, hey, we're working on it, we have not heard a single word from it ever since. So all we can do now is just speculate, and that is exactly what we're gonna do in the form of a little wish list of the stuff that I would like to see on the second season of the Senran Kagura anime. I do want to establish that this is all my personal opinion, there's not an official list in any kind of way, and of course, if you guys have any suggestions of what you would like to see in the Senran Kagura anime, you can of course hit me up in the comments and let me know what you think. Everything that I have in this list, which is a total of 5, are not in any particular order. These are just 5 different things that I would like to see. Now, without further ado, I say we get started. There really is a lot to talk about. So I did actually, write some notes on my phone just so that I don't forget, because I know I'm gonna forget, and we're gonna begin with number 5, which is more action. Now, it has been a while since the last time that I saw the SK anime, but I don't really remember a lot of fights. And whatever fights we did see, they really didn't do much. There was a lot of talking, and a lot of just, swords clashing a couple of times, and that's pretty much it. There really wasn't a lot in terms of smooth animation. This is what I'm talking about with the level of popularity the Senran Kagura had before and what it has now. There's definitely many more games now, there's a lot more people that love Senran Kagura now, so maybe they have more money to kind of improve on this aspect around the animation quality that might allow them to have better fights, or just more fights, because I don't remember many of them happening. One of the most exciting parts about Senran Kagura is of course the gameplay, and it is very hack and slash, just mow down a bunch of enemies. And so it's really weird that we barely ever get to see the girls, kind of get their hands dirty with like a big wave of enemies, just seeing people just fly off in the air, or seeing all of those signature moves that all the characters have. We barely ever get to see any of that, if at all. They focus so much on the fan service and people just kind of standing around and talking that the series ends up getting kind of dull and boring, with not a lot of ass kicking going on, except until the very end, where there's a little bit more of that, but even then it is kind of lacking. Seeing the girls fulfill other missions that are not necessarily tied to the main story would be really cool. Seeing some more training sessions that is more than just like still images with like camera movements or something like that. Seeing all the signature moves used in different situations, or maybe seeing some brand new moves, seeing them be creative with their shinobi skills and that and all that stuff. That would be really awesome. Or maybe even getting some backstory into how they were able to come up with their moves, if that is something that they invented, or if that's something that like their spirit animal guardian thing gives them or something. If they could like maybe expand a little bit more on the lore of their attacks, if there even is any, then I think that'd be pretty good, because they have the whole thing about their guardian animal that gives them powers and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they can tie that into the combat or something, or maybe just have better animation, because there's very little of it in the Senran Kagura anime. Again, a lot of it is just kind of still images, just sort of talking and standing around and not doing much, and when they do, it's very little. Now again, I could easily be wrong with all this. It's been a long while since I last saw the Senran Kagura anime, but I'm trying to remember as hard as I possibly can, and I simply can't remember any good fights on the top of my head. Which is weird, because Senran Kagura is mostly just girls fighting all the time. Now moving on to my number 4, and that is more backstory. Yes, I think we urgently need more backstory. That was another really big part of Senran Kagura that you don't necessarily see reflected in the anime. There were many segments in the game that you would just see a black screen with a white text where you would just suddenly get the backstory to one of the girls, or just their inner thoughts in the current situation about why they have become a shinobi, or maybe why they didn't want to be a shinobi, but for some reason they are now. Whether it's funny or serious, either way you're looking into the character's mind and you can relate to them a lot more. It makes the characters more interesting and make them go far beyond what many people think Senran Kagura is, which is just boobs and that's it. With the SK anime, it is unfortunately boobs and not a lot more substance beyond that, but there is some small kernels of potential and awesomeness that you do see, particularly in the 10th episode of Senran Kagura, which is mostly a flashback with Katsuragi and Nikariga when they were first years before the other 3 Hanzo girls even existed. It was only just the 2. And they would have a lot of friction with each other at the beginning. They didn't really like each other all that much at the start, especially with Ikariga being very cold and distant, even having a totally different hairstyle. It was very interesting seeing almost like a buddy cop kind of thing where they didn't like each other and then they did start liking each other and they start working as a team, and seeing how in the current timeline, they're third years and they're about to graduate, they always talk in almost like a nostalgic way, being like, oh, you remember those days? You remember when we used to fight all the time? Ah, good to, well, you're my best friend now. You're my partner. I'm glad I went through the trenches with you during all those times. And it makes it sound like, man, like I really would love to see what happened back in the day, you know? That was what, like 2 years that we didn't see? And we only saw one episode of maybe like a couple occasions of them kind of, clashing with each other. I would love to see like maybe 1 or 2 more episodes of them back then, doing stuff. And the same thing I would say for the other girls in the cast too. Again, when you play the Senran Kagura titles, any of them, basically from the main timeline, from Burst, Shinobi versus Estival versus, you always get a moment where you just kind of sit down and get some story time, where you see everyone's backstory, especially in Shinobi versus with Gessen and Hebijo and all of those. You always take a little peek into some really screwed up stuff that has happened in their life, especially with Gessen where they're all orphans. We do see some small little peaks of that in the Senran Kagura anime with Katsuragi's backstory, with, Yagyu's, dead sister and all that kind of stuff. But again, it's just very small little bits and pieces rather than dedicating more time to it. Maybe dedicating, well, maybe not an entire episode, but at least half of an episode where, we can really see it in its full breadth and its full detail and its full sound and voice. Having all these scenes show up would definitely benefit the anime a lot, because when you play the games, you don't really see much of it. They're all just descriptions. It's all just text. The vast majority of the time when you see the backstories is just some, generic looking background. Sometimes it's not even that. It's just a black background with a white text and that's it. And I'm just there going like, dude, not even like a puppet show or something. Like, just give me something so that I actually know what the hell is going on. I kind of need to use my imagination, almost like I'm reading a book, just to, kind of figure out what the hell is going on. I would say that that's pretty lazy considering, but if you actually make up for it by, showing the whole breadth of it in the anime, by actually showing the full flashback, showing all these characters involved, showing all these people that are now dead that have affected the current character storyline, then that'd be cool to see. There are even important characters like Dogen we rarely ever see, Kurakage, we never know what his face looks like. There's a lot of characters out there that are pretty much faceless. It wasn't until Senran Kagura 2 Deep Crimson where we actually saw what Dogen looks like. Like, the main villain that appears multiple times, you never see him until, like, one game. So yeah, I really wish that they could use the anime as an advantage to actually visually show these things. One last thing that I would like to address is definitely the rivalries between the 2 factions, Hanzo and Hebijo going at it. If you have played the games before, then you know that there's kind of like a rivalry between all of the characters. Every single character is like the equivalent of the other one. Yagyu and Mirai, they both use umbrellas as weapons. Asuka and Homura, they're both the leaders of their own factions, and they're all kind of similar in a little way. And so, one person against their evil equivalent, and then they clash, right? But when you play the games, there's a lot more conversation, there's a lot more clashing, there's a lot more talking that goes goes on, where they eventually like each other, they see their differences, their similarities, and all that stuff, and they all become friends by the end of it, right? But in the anime, there really isn't a lot of time spent seeing the characters interact with each other. You know, there's kind of some combat banter here and there, and then be like, oh man, these guys are so much stronger, we gotta beat them, but that's pretty much the short end of it. Seeing their backstories, along with seeing the characters interact with each other currently, will definitely add to us actually giving a damn about who's gonna win in a fight. Especially when you've played the Senran Kagura games for so long, to the point that you're pretty much rooting for everybody. All of the morality stuff starts to get very gray by the time you know everybody's story. So it just makes it more interesting when you put them in an arena. It's like, alright, fight. And like, who are you gonna root for, you know? Well, I kinda want these guys to win, but they're technically the bad guys. Like, you know, all of that moral questioning doesn't really come into play in the anime. Everything is a lot more flat, a lot more one-sided, and so that's not necessarily the thing that really got me intrigued in Senran Kagura. It was all those little gray areas that really got me going. Again, one final reminder, it's been a long while since I last saw the SK anime, so maybe a little bit of this does show up, but again, as I try to rummage around my memories, I really don't remember much of it happening. Or at least, you know, not enough for it to be as interesting as I'm saying. Number 3 on the list is better music. Now, there's something that I feel very strongly about, is that Senran Kagura, in general, has a pretty damn good soundtrack. It's really rockin', it can really get you going most of the time. Unfortunately, the Senran Kagura anime soundtrack is boring, generic, bland, sleep-inducing, just flat out bad. Even the theme song isn't really that much to write home about. It sounds like any other action anime theme song, honestly, and there really isn't much of note to see in it. Now granted, all of the other theme songs for all the other Senran Kagura games are ever so slightly more interesting, and I would like to see something of that level be inserted onto the anime. Now granted, I am not asking for, you know, the exact same songs to show up in the game to be copy-pasted over to the anime. I don't want that. I want them to come up with an original soundtrack, but kind of on the level of what you see in the games. And for some reason, like, it's just so bad. It's just bad music. It's boring music. And I just feel like, you know, they sat down at a desk and they said, okay, we need a soundtrack for this ninja anime. What sounds ninja-y and Japanese-y? Okay, well, let's do some shamisen. Tang, 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 tang. And there we go, you're done. You know, do that sound effect a lot. And that's kind of it. I really wish I could be more eloquent and detailed in really what I want to say, because I know what I want to say, but it eventually all boils down to just compare and contrast the music with the games and the music with the anime. And, you know, start weighing, one of these are definitely much better than the other. We should definitely try and balance that out a little bit. Number 2 would be to change the art style. I don't know about you guys, I mean, I've gotten used to it as time goes on, but I think the art style for the Senran Kagura anime is a little weird. I don't know, I feel like the eyes for the characters, and mostly the eyes are just a little bit too wide and too tall. I feel like, you know, this is their face, and this entire bit is just their eyes, and like everything else is just like the mouth. You know, I feel like the eyes are way too big. I feel like, you know, there's some characters that change, like Hikage looks a lot more pale and weird. As a matter of fact, doesn't like Hikage in the anime actually have feelings? Like the whole like no emotions thing got like retconned and like changed around, like, you know, that's another thing that would go into like the backstory, right? Like, why did you change that? You know, get your goddamn characters right. But moving on more to the art style, I feel like something more akin to Shinobi Versus, or even the most recent stuff with Senran Kagura and New Link, I feel like that fits more. It's still very bright colored, is still very moe, is still very ecchi, but it just, it does have that edge, you know, that kind of action anime kind of edge, as opposed to the Senran Kagura anime, where I feel like they go a little bit too much into the moe, where it's too bright-eyed. And I don't know, something about the colors just kind of blend in a way that kind of makes me fall asleep as well. I don't know, I just, the colors don't pop as much as the games do. You know, even in like the opening 2D cutscenes for the games, I feel like they're a lot brighter and they pop out of the screen a lot better. I feel like here they use a lot of like, you know, brown hues, a lot of red, orangey stuff, just like very calming, soothing colors, some bloom in there that for some reason just kind of mellows me out and makes me want to go to bed. You know, it's just, is weird. And I feel like if they completely reworked their art style and changed it in a way that looks more like Shinobi Versus, not Estival Versus, Shinobi Versus or the newest Senran Kagura New Link game. I definitely like, it's kind of a balance between those two. I think New Link is definitely like the best happy balance in there. I feel like Estival is too moe and too round and weird, and like they have those big giant teeth that look like the Chipbats from Alvin and the Chipmunks. But Shinobi Versus is a lot more, it looks more edgy, it looks more action-y in a way. So it's either one of the two. I would say that it would definitely benefit the series rather than this other weird art style that they got going on that, I mean, they kind of look like Senran Kagura, but not really. Everybody kind of looks the same, but they just kind of, it's like when you're playing a game where you have a character creator and you just kind of palette swap, you know, the hair colors and the hairstyle, and there you go. You know, they're all kind of the same template, but just change the hair a little bit, and there you go. It's a different character. That's kind of how it looks like. Whereas in the other games, they definitely look a lot more distinct. And on top of that, there are some pretty nice ideas that the Senran Kagura anime does introduce, like the Shinobi barriers, where they're pretty much like a portal into, you know, your opponent's mind or something like that, you know? Like if Hibari opens up a Shinobi barrier, everything is full of candy, and it's all pink, and has cute things and stuff like that. Everything kind of pertains to the personality of the person that opened up the barriers. Like you're, you know, diving deep into that person's world, and I like that. It's very visually striking. It makes the fights more colorful and more entertaining when you're kind of teleported into another world rather than having everything be in like a boring regular location. So it definitely has its high points, but I feel like they could definitely do a lot better when it comes to the visual style. Now granted, this is season 2 of the anime. This is not a different anime. This is not a reboot or like a different version or a different story. This is a continuation of the first season. So what could easily happen, especially now at this point, ever since the announcement was like back in August, so they could easily be, they have already worked on this anime for a while now in 2018, so, you know, they're not gonna listen to me and be like, oh, change the whole thing, you know. My prediction is that they might just keep the same art style that they had before, just to have consistency with one season and the other. So I could easily just be yelling at a brick wall right now, but, you know, that's what I would do if I was running the anime. And the last and final thing that I have on my list is the narrator. Fuck the narrator. I hate this guy so much in the English version of this. In the Japanese version, he's just a regular narrator. He butts in randomly to explain things that shouldn't need explaining by some random voice. You already know that you're doing terribly when it comes to storytelling when some element gets introduced in the anime and you need some voice out of nowhere to like explain what the hell is going on. Either the characters that are actually in the series should explain it a little bit, or maybe not even that, just have everything be told visually, or just have the, you know, I remember like with the Shinobi barrier, you know, you would see a voice, Shinobi barrier, it does this, and it does this, and that. I'm like, it kind of brings the pacing to a halt when somebody comes in and just interrupts. This is even worse with the English dub, which is terrible, by the way. And one of the reasons for why it's especially terrible is because of the narrator. I don't know what they did to the narrator in the English version, where he's such a condescending jerk the entire time. The narrator spends a lot of time saying a lot of jokes that are not funny and gets super duper condescending to its audience. It flat out insults the audience by trying to explain something and then interrupting himself in the middle of it, but saying like, you guys don't care, you guys know why you're here, what fucking, like, just, well then why do you exist then? Like, you're out there like explaining part of the lore of the freaking anime, and then you're like, oh, no one cares, you're here to like masturbate or some shit. I'm like, Jesus, dude, who hurt you? Like, I'm just here to watch an anime. You're here insulting me, like calling me like a fucking weeaboo or some shit. Like, it is the most insulting fucking thing. And I got visibly like pissed off when I saw the English dub and I saw the narrator be such a condescending, irritating cock the entire time. He was just a dickhead most of the time. Like, never mind the fact that the Japanese version just like totally like stops the pacing of the anime to explain something that shouldn't need explaining, you know? But on top of that, you have an English dub that is like a complete antithesis. It's a totally different narrator that is more condescending, more aggressive, more abrasive, with terrible jokes that don't work, that just completely like, you know, every single bad assumption that people have about Senran Kagura is further reinforced by this stupid narrator that doesn't understand understand what Senran Kagura is about, because the people that wrote the narrator don't understand what Senran Kagura is all about. I don't know what they're gonna do for their second season, but the narrator has to go on both versions effective immediately. It doesn't help with your storytelling. If anything, it makes it look even worse, because it goes to show that your own characters in your own world and your own lore is not able to explain itself. There has to be some voice coming in and explain stuff to you, like the ending of Psycho or something. It fucks up the pacing, and on top of that, when you dub it in English, you have a bunch of American people that know nothing else but to just come up with synonyms for boobs and make condescending jokes that insult their audiences. So no, the narrator can no longer stay. If there's anything that I really want to beg the people making this anime is, please, that narrator has to go. That is why that is the number one thing that I would like to see in the Senran Kagura anime. And by that I mean something that I would not like to see, and that is the narrator. So to recap on everything, so we have number 5 is just more action in general. Senran Kagura is mostly about the action and the fan service. So if you're gonna have a lot of fan service with which the Senran Kagura anime does have a lot, I would like to see that more integrated with the combat rather than seeing 10 minutes of bullshit and then 5 minutes of maybe some story happening. I want to see more backstory. One of the reasons for why I've played Senran Kagura and stuck with it for so long is because I came in for the fan service, but I stayed for the characters and the story and the awesome soundtrack. There's definitely a lot that can be dug into when it comes to the characters and their backstory and why they're shinobi, especially with characters that we don't know anything about, like Asuka and stuff like that. We saw Homura's backstory. Where's Asuka's backstory? Where's Hibari's backstory? We saw a little bit of Yagi's backstory, but I want to see more. I want to see them more like individual, alone. What would they do without their team? How do they stand as individuals rather than just putting them together and being like, we're the good guys? We need more depth in that story. I know that it's there. The games have shown it. Now reflect that in the anime. With number 3 is better music. Again, I wish I could be more elaborate with this, but just, the fucking music in the games is awesome. The music in the anime is not. Please fix that. Number 2 is a change in art style. I mean, I got used to it over time, but I think the SK anime art style is a little weird. The eyes are a little bit too big, and the colors are just weird as well. It's just a weird art style, and I would love it if it was more akin to Shinoya versus New Link. And finally, my number 1 thing is fuck the narrator. Ban that guy to the Shadow Realm. I don't care. I don't want to hear him or see him anymore. I mean, I never saw him. It was just a voice, but you know what I mean. But there you go. That in a nutshell are the 5 things that I would like to see in the brand new season of the Senran Kagura anime. Consider it my small wish list for the SK anime. I can't remember if they had a set date for the anime. When they did the teaser, I do remember them just saying that it's happening, we're doing it. I don't know if they even said 2018 or something. I wouldn't be surprised if it came out summer 2018 or something like that. But I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm actually thinking of reviewing the current Senran Kagura anime right now, looking at every single episode individually and reviewing it. And maybe like that I'll know what to expect when we move on to the second season, where we know that the Hebijo girls are no longer Hebijo, they're going to be Crimson Squad. And so who knows what, other stories are going to be covering. Maybe it'll be an original story. I doubt it. I'm assuming it's going to be the Shinobi versus story, or maybe Deep Crimson or something. They'll probably follow the line of the games, but hey man, if they do an original story, that'd be great. But let me know what you think. If you guys have any other recommendations, any other suggestions that you would like to see in the Senran Kagura anime, again, hit me up in the comments. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe, bell icon. You guys know what to do to be notified on everything that's coming out. And of course, if you want to visit my social media, go down there into the description, or you can just go to Good Game of Fun. That's where everything is at. You don't have to remember all those pesky URLs. But anyway, I'm the Hat Person. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, and I will see you guys next time.